Hello, and welcome to Greek the Week. I'm Mona Duncan, and today we are continuing on a little bit from what we talked about last week. Let me bring up the screen. We're talking about it's always kind of hidden behind is reality therapy and choice theory, and the benefits of using those. So today we are talking in particular about knowing who you are and what you stand for. So, some suggestions. I always do it that it is suggestion because I keep learning about who I am and what I stand for, and so I'm not here to try to be the professor or anything for anyone in particular. So anyway, here is the world, knowing who we are and what we stand for. So I was thinking and looking at the fact that our world population is 8 billion individuals, which in the United States alone, there are 335 million people, with 200,000 being added daily. Of course, I didn't put in the statistic of how many was, you know, dying, but with 200,000 being added daily. And that 80% of those of us that live in the US soil and sod, we live in cities or the outage of cities. And the proximity that we are in, with being close to one another and cell phones and text and social media and all that kind of stuff. Yet the fact of the matter is that a lot of people are lonely. And that whatever the group, just whatever has a tendency to complain and criticize, whereas the whatever it takes individuals are the ones that observe situations and become empowered to affect personal change in the attitudes that we have toward ourselves, toward others, the thoughts and the actions that we engage in. So we're looking about it's all about choices. That no matter where we live, as individuals, we have been gifted with a free will. We are free to make our own choices. And every choice has a consequence. It's either what you wanted, or maybe it's not what you wanted. Maybe it's really not what you wanted. But every choice has a consequence. That consequence can be good, it can be mediocre, it can be not so good. And over time, these consequences show themselves to be either meaningful or meaningless. And the more aware we can be aware of that, the more aware that we can watch and to see, is it improving or is it going down the slopes? And so here's just a little poem that kind of goes hand in hand. In grasping for our human needs, let us humbly examine our deeds, helping, hurting, blaming, complaining, guiding, stressing, releasing, sustaining. Personal ability, personal accounting truly frees us when we begin to make a personal encounter.
That last phrase, Mona, really said something. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go right ahead.
That until we make the personal accountability, it's not meaningful.
Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, that was a different way of expressing it than I'd heard before. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So, I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, here we go. So, my personal philosophy as a helper, as someone that cares about you, uh, that if I give you information, and I worked with federal prisoners for 20 plus years, and I would tell them all the time, individually as well as being, in class. If I give you information, I may or I may not be adding to your knowledge. But if I can help you to think differently, or if I can, cause you to think, I've added to your stature. And the reality is, my goal is to mess with your mind, because we have the ability to have so many thoughts and to make changes. And so, as we begin to listen to and hear someone else speak, regardless of who it is, and hear them speaking, maybe what they say could be a mirror that you could kind of look into, like, the palm of your hand. Oh, maybe I could become like that. Maybe what they're doing, maybe the way they're seeing things would give me a new insight into seeing the world and to seeing life and to seeing myself as a different being. And then also, as we can begin to really look into who we are, self evaluate, it aids in our acknowledging our unique talents. We can become aware of the fact that, hey, you know what? That's something I can do. And it also leads to ownership of our thoughts and our actions. As we begin to be aware of the fact of what all is going on in life around us, and am I helping or am I hurting? Am I being contributing to, or am I taking away from? Going back to the ultimate question, is it driving us further apart, or is it bringing us closer together? And so as we begin to think about, we begin to realize what we possibly can change. And then self-motivation to do the right thing. It's leading you to understand who you are and who you want to be, and that you want to be someone that is reliable, and that rather than making excuses for. So it's taking personal responsibility. The only person you can control is you. Now, that can be, um, you can see it as a truth, or you can see it as, what are you talking about? There's no way, I can make people do things. But the only person you have any control over is you. And the only person you can change is you. Now, we can influence others, and we do influence. We're probably always influencing others. And again, those spectrums go from way low to way high. But all the way within those different spectrums, we may attempt to control someone. We can definitely influence them, maybe for good, maybe not so good. And we certainly cannot change anyone else. They have to do it themselves, just like you have to make your own changes for yourself. And change is an inside job. I want to lose weight. That means I don't eat quite as much as I have been. I want to have more energy. That means I have to literally use these arms and use these legs and use these things to, exercise to get more energy, because change is an inside job. And all of our thoughts come, I think we could understand this so much more in looking at the fact that whenever, as Winnie the Pooh would say, I've got a grumbly in my tumbly, meaning that, hey, I'm getting hungry. Well, it's that internal thing that is giving you the message that there's something I need, there's something I want, there's something that's out there that will be helpful for me. And so taking personal responsibility is being responsible for what? For your actions, for your attitudes, for your thoughts, for what you value, for the goals you have, for what you have accomplished, for what you need to accomplish and getting in there and accomplishing it, for being a person of integrity. It is being who you are, or questioning, am I the person that has a good attitude, do I hold thoughts that are commendable? And so here, responsibility, it's a really big word, but I like to take it down and look at the fact that I have the ability, and I've got my little cursor here, I don't know if you can see it or not. I have the ability as to how I will respond. And as we can kind of begin to look at those responsibility and do it backwards, I have the ability to choose how I will respond. And again, that goes back to whether it is from this way big spectrum of attitudes and so forth. So, just as a thought, in getting to know who we are and what we stand for, to just ask and to, I thought about putting answer, but I don't really like to have questions and answers, to just think about it. I know whenever I'm working with people individually, one on one, I may be asking a question, but I'm not expecting an answer. I'm just wanting it to be something that you may think about for a while. So, what challenges you? And if you are challenged, do you rise to the occasion? Yes, no. And in what manner do you rise to the occasion of being challenged? If not, why not? If we are challenged and we want to say something and we don't, when can we learn to speak up? When can we learn to not and have it be appropriate all the way around and for you, for the good of you, yes, but also for the good of the whole. Upon reflection, what did you say? I didn't know I had that in me. Have you ever said that? Have you ever looked back at something, whether it was a positive or a negative? Well, think about those things. Think about those things. And then what is your motive? Is it to always be honest? Is it to be pure? Is it to be manipulative? And I know sometimes those things can come up depending on the different people that you may be around. But if we are around people that are dishonest or manipulative, maybe you want to do some additional thinking. How could you be a better team player, whatever the team is, whether it's work or home, or what about control? How do you handle situations that where you want to be in control? Or how do you not handle situations where things are totally out of control? And what effect does control have on your friendships or your relationships or the want to or the being controlled by someone else, attempt to be? In what areas do you need to get honest with yourself? In what areas do you need to get honest with others? And so here is a little graphic that I kind of put together today. It's not as dressy as I had it initially, but anyway, it's the same thought that whenever we find an idea in life, a concept, let's just go back to the one that we talked about a minute ago, of such as the only person you can control is you, that no one can control you. Well, what if we agree to that? Boy, nobody can control me. And then we have a tendency to, believe it and value it and act upon it. But how are we acting upon it? Are we acting upon it as in we're, really being in control of us? Are we, anyway, what my point is, or what I'm trying to say here, is that any of those concepts that we agree to, believe in, and then we begin to act upon them, as we go further down the road, are we becoming more content with who we are? Are we becoming fulfilled with the thoughts we think, the actions we take, the attitudes that we have? If so, then maybe we're somewhere getting close to looking at reality, at looking at what is for the good of the whole. But have we taken those ideas of being in control or being special or whatever, or being that what I have, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine? Have we ever picked up those things? And as we go further through life, a little bit of distance in what we initially believed, and we come over here and we become more confused, we become more frustrated. Well, then maybe it's time to self-evaluate. Maybe it's time to look down here and challenge what we are valuing, challenging again our attitudes and so forth, and then taking this little thing back here and coming right back up to what was it that I agreed to initially? What was it that I agreed to that over time over not really thinking about it, over not really self-evaluating, over time, how has all of that become distorted? So, how can we guard against blockers? I mentioned this last week on the fact that as we make our goals, that there are some things we need that will keep us from setting goals. And anyway, one of them is denial. And so I have some just given some definitions to. Denial is that ever widening gap between saying and doing. And it begins to lead to delusion and believing a lie. And then the lie becomes your truth. You know, when you begin to deny. Oh, I didn't hit her very hard. Oh, I just took a little bit. I didn't steal the whole thing. I just this, I just that. But the more we deny, the more that ever widening gap between what we say and what we're actually doing. And then rationalization. Rationalization is seeing the situation based on faulty reasoning. They deserved this. They didn't deserve this. So I'm going to give them something else. It's an unsound and illogical perception. That rationalization can be, unless we're really delicate about it, it can be insane thinking. And then justification. It's making excuses for or placing blame somewhere else. It's trying to explain our lack of discipline as though explaining it is going to make it viable. I mean, there are times, I'm not saying there are not times that things do happen, but if they keep happening again and again and again, it's going back to the fact, well, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Every time, sometimes we have to acknowledge, wake ourselves up to the fact that, no, we're not going to accept those denials, rationalizations, justifications, dishonesty, so forth anymore. Dishonesty is failure to acknowledge what is true, what is right, what is reasonable. It is not listening or heeding the internal compass of our conscience. You know, deep down inside, we know when we are going askew. And so dishonesty is being disingenuous. And fear. Supposedly, psychologists tell us that there are only two true emotions. And I like to use it like a bookends. One end is fear, and one end is love. And those are the only two true emotions. And so fear sometimes can keep us from loving things that are lovable. And sometimes love can help us to overcome the fears of those that may be making denials, rationalizations, justification, dishonesty, and acting out of fear themselves. So we'll close this up. As we get to know who we are, be honest and integritous with ourselves as well as with others, that we can allow what hurts us to heal us. And so may you honestly taste the deliciousness of life. May you revel in challenges presented and humbly triumph. May you embrace change and see it as a life-giving force that it is. May you be healed of poverty, lack, intimidation, or anything that may keep you bound. May you be released from unforgiveness, anxiety, or whatever may be keeping you stuck. May you allow reverence to love and bless you. Just knowing who you are is special. Not super special, but special. May your last thought of the day be one of a profound yet simple thanks. May you experience a restful sleep and pleasant dreams. Well, thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to close the recording. And then those of you that are here live, we will chat. Many blessings.